Late-night diners feel safe. Warm lights, hot coffee, a quiet booth to rest in. But what if the place you walked into never intended to let you leave? These are not urban legends, they're real encounters with something far darker than the menu suggests. Watch till the end, because one of these booths might be waiting for you. 1. The man in booth 9 ***. It was nearly midnight when I stopped at a roadside diner. The neon sign flickered red against the windshield. Inside it was quiet, too quiet. Just a waitress behind the counter and one other customer. A man sitting alone in booth 9. He was not eating, just staring at the wall, hands folded neatly, like he had been waiting a long time. I took a booth across from him. The air smelled of grease, old coffee, and something sour. The waitress handed me a menu, but her eyes flicked to booth 9, nervous. "Do not look at him too long," she said softly. I laughed, but she did not. As I scanned the menu, I felt his eyes, heavy, unblinking, watching. I turned to glance. He smiled, but there was something wrong with it. His teeth were perfect, too perfect, like plastic. His eyes never blinked, just wide and glossy, like glass. The waitress returned. "Your order?" I asked. "Who is that guy?" She froze. "He comes every night. Same booth. Never speaks. Just watches." As she set down the coffee, I noticed something. There was no reflection in the window beside him. The light from the booth, empty. But he was still sitting there. I blinked. He was now looking at me directly. His head tilted slowly. His mouth opened just slightly. No tongue. Just dark. Like a tunnel. The power flickered. When it came back, he was sitting in my booth, across from me, smiling. The waitress was gone. The door was locked. The menu now had no words, just a list of names. Mine was at the bottom. He leaned closer, whispered something, but no sound came out, only the smell, burnt meat and cold dirt. I tried to scream, but my voice stuck. The last thing I saw before it all went black was him sliding into booth 9 again, alone, waiting, and my reflection, gone from the glass, only his. The reflection stared back at me, but it was not mine. It was his. He smiled through the glass, slow, precise, like he had practiced it 1,000 times. I backed away from the booth, heart hammering, but my body felt wrong, heavy, slow, like I had been filled with something thick. I looked down at my hands. They were not mine. Too pale, too thin. The man in booth 9 stood up again, walked calmly toward the front door. This time, he cast a shadow. He had taken mine. I ran to follow, but my legs barely moved. He stepped outside into the dark. Free. The diner door slammed shut. Lights flickered. The waitress reappeared, but she looked different. Her eyes empty, movements mechanical. She walked to booth 9, looked right at me, and said, "Next one will be here soon." Then handed me a menu. Blank. Except for one new name. "Yours." I stared at the menu. The letters shifted slowly, as if written in something alive. My name pulsed at the top of the list. Not printed, etched, carved in, permanent. I looked around the diner. Every table now had someone seated, but their faces were wrong, blurred, melted, like masks left too close to heat. All of them stared at me. None blinked, none moved. The waitress stood by the counter, still holding her pen, but she was no longer breathing, just waiting. Then the bell above the front door rang. A man stepped in, tired eyes, dust on his jacket. He looked just like I had earlier, a traveler, looking for coffee and quiet. He took a seat. Booth 9. My booth. The waitress moved again, mechanically smooth. She handed him the menu, said nothing. He opened it, and I saw his face change, just slightly. I stood, or thought I did, but my body stayed still. I was no longer in control. I watched from the glass, from the window behind booth 9. I had become part of the diner, part of the ritual, trapped between a reflection and a name, on a list that never ends. Outside, the man sipped his coffee. Inside, the lights dimmed, and somewhere in the walls, I could hear the voices of others, who had once sat where he was sitting now, and never left. The voices grew louder, whispers overlapping in tones of warning, sorrow, and hunger. They circled inside the walls, under the floor, behind the flickering lights. I tried to scream. Nothing came out, only silence, like I had been swallowed by it. The man in booth 9 shifted. Uneasy, he looked toward the window, right at me. and for 1 second, his eyes met mine. He saw me, truly saw me. He stood up suddenly, chair scraping hard against tile. The waitress flinched, her head twitching to the side. The others in the diner turned, slow, inhuman. Their heads moved first, then their bodies. The man stepped back toward the door, but it was gone. Where it had been, only wall, smooth, white. He pounded on it, panicked, his breathing fast and shallow. The waitress walked toward him, menu in hand. She held it out. He took it, hesitated, opened it, and froze. I knew what he saw. His name, at the bottom. Fresh. No. He turned back to booth 9. Now empty. Waiting. He sat down slowly, like something had taken over. And the moment he did, the diner reset. Lights brightened. Coffee brewed. Neon sign outside glowed red again. The other faces turned away. Back to their meals. Back to pretending. And I, just a shape in the glass, watched as another story began all over again. Booth 9 never stays empty for long. The clock above the counter ticked once. The hands reset to midnight. Outside, the world kept moving. Cars passed. Rain misted the windows. But no one ever looked in. No one ever noticed the diner. Not unless it wanted to be seen. Inside, the new man sat silently. He stared down at the cup of coffee steaming in front of him, never lifting it. Across the room, the others continued their act. Forks scraped empty plates. Voices murmured nothing. But they were watching. Waiting. The waitress stood still behind the counter, staring ahead, smiling that plastic, tired smile. And in the glass, I remained. A shadow. A trapped breath. A memory wearing my face. I watched every second of it unfold. And when the next traveler stops for coffee, when the neon sign draws them in, they too will take a seat. They too will see their name on the menu. And I will be there. In the reflection. Just as he is now. Just as you will be. Because in this diner, you do not pay with money. You pay with your place. Asterisk asterisk. And once you sit in booth 9, you never get back up. Booth 9 sat quiet, but never empty. It held the weight of every soul before, pressed into the cracked vinyl, soaking into the wood grain of the table. The new man's eyes had dulled. His hands rested exactly where mine once had. Palms flat, shoulders stiff, mouth trying not to tremble. Outside, the rain stopped. Not because the storm ended, but because the diner no longer needed the disguise. It had what it came for. Inside the window, I saw the others now. More faces, pressed into the glass beside me. Watching. None of us blinked. None of us could. Only the waitress moved freely, pouring coffee into cups that never emptied. She turned toward the door. Not to open it, but to wait. Another one would come soon, drawn by tired eyes, and a glowing red sign, thinking it was just a place to rest. A break from the road. But this diner does not rest. It feeds, remembers, and it replaces. Booth 9 is ready again. And so am I, smiling. Just behind the glass, the diner lights hummed. Booth 9 sat occupied, but already preparing for the next. The man now seated there would forget his name in hours. Then his reflection. Then his voice. And the cycle would spin again, like the worn blades of the overhead fan. Endless and slow. Outside, the world passed like nothing was wrong. Because no one ever remembers this place. Not until they step inside. And once they do, once they sit down, the road behind them vanishes. The clock resets. I'm still here, pressed into the glass, smiling with the others. Faces stretched thin with memory, trapped between the moment of arrival and the moment we disappeared. If you ever find yourself on a quiet road, alone, with a hunger you cannot name, and a red neon sign blinks through the mist, keep driving. Do not stop. Do not go inside. Do not sit in booth 9, because some meals cost more than money. And once the diner learns your name, it never forgets.